Hi, everybody. So, this is that strange gap of time between when I go live and you guys join. I never know what to do with these loose minutes, but I am very happy to be here. For those who don't speak English, vamos a estar hablando con Connor Jessup, que es un actor y director canadiense que hizo un documental maravilloso sobre Apichatpong Weerasethakul, que es un director tailandés que acaba o prontamente va a lanzar una película dirigida y rodada en Colombia que se llama Memoria. So if English is not your thing, worry not. I'm gonna chat with Connor, and then I will try to upload this with subtitles so that you guys don't miss a thing. Okay, so I'm gonna see if Connor is already here, and he is. Let's try and do this. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good.
I'm so happy you agreed to do this.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, it's an honor. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun.
Yeah, any excuse to talk about Joe, I'm happy.
I mean, right? He's awesome. Have you seen the movie? Have you seen Memoria yet?
I haven't because I feel like it would be a crime to not watch it in theaters. And I feel that way about most movies, but especially with Joe's movies. And it's coming to the New York Film Festival next week, so I'm actually going to see the premiere there. So I'm a week away from seeing it. I'm very excited.
Okay, I'm gonna see it this week, so I'm gonna try not to spoil anything for you.
I feel like Joe's movies are beyond the possibility of spoilers.
You're right. So to begin with, first I have one of my favorite singers. It's called Celia Cruz.
Mm-hmm.
She's a salsa singer, and she has this really beautiful phrase. She says, "Sorry if my English is not very good looking." So I'm gonna start with that, right? Sorry if my English is not very good looking. I can't completely make up words while I'm speaking, so I ask of you just to pretend you know what I'm saying, and just that's the way we're gonna.
As long as you do the same thing with my English, because my English can be faulty too.
I promise. Pinky promise.
I'm
So,
with you.
of course, Connor, you need no introduction, but in case anybody in Colombia has been living under a rock, you or people that are watching need to know that Connor is an actor and he's also a filmmaker, and he's acted in wonderful series and movies such as Falling Skies, Lock and Key, American Crime, Closet Monster, and you've also directed short films and films such as Boy, Lyra's Forest, and of course the documentary that's brought us to this little chat that it's called 8W, a portrait of Apichatpong Weerasethakul. Did I say that right? I always struggle.
Honestly, even I don't know exactly. I feel like I say it proper. That's why I'm so grateful that he goes by Joe, because it saves me the embarrassment of having to butcher my way through his name most of the time.
And speaking about, it's a relief that he goes by Joe. But do you have any idea why he goes by Joe?
That's a good question. I feel like I should know the answer to that. A lot of Thai people have
American names.
Oh, yeah, they have nicknames that range from very normal American names like Joe to another friend of mine goes by Boat. So there's like, because Thai names tend to be quite long and tricky for English speakers. So there's I don't know where Joe specifically comes from though. It's a good question.
Yeah, we'll need to ask him.
Some things are better left a mystery with Joe.
I know. So I love. We have a friend in common, Diana, who's the producer.
I love Diana.
of Memoria, and Diana calls him Api, so
Yes.
I'm gonna call him Api. And to me, it was when I found out that you did this documentary, I was very drawn to what you had to say,
Mm.
because of course Abby is very well known, but I feel like maybe the younger generation,
Mm.
he's not very well known for people who's very young. And I
Mm.
was like, I feel this is gonna be an amazing conversation. And I wanted to ask you, I remember exactly what I felt the first time I saw one of
Mm.
Api's movies and how it changed me.
Mm.
And I wanted to ask you, what was that moment for you and what was it like to you? Do you
Mm.
remember?
Yeah, very clearly, actually. I was uh 15, 14 or 15, and I was just starting to really watch movies in a real way, and I was at a like an arts camp, like a summer camp, and I was in like a film program, and I had a really really amazing instructor who's actually still a really good friend of mine, and he would show us clips from movies, and we would talk about scenes, and we would talk about camera, and it was just a way of watching and talking about movies that I had never encountered before. Um, and I saw a lot of things for the first time. I was exposed to a lot of things for the first time there, and he showed us Tropical Malady, which
Yeah.
is still my favorite movie of Joe's. And I remember, I mean, it sounds like I'm making it up, but it's like, that feeling you get sometimes when beyond the content of a movie, when the sound and the image go together in a certain way, and it's like a tingle up your spine. It's like
Yeah,
it's like
I
a
totally
shiver.
get it.
I'm sure people who are really into music have the same feeling with music. There's like a harmony, and it like has a physical effect on you. And it had I don't remember the exact shot or image, or if it was a whole bunch of them, but I remember watching Tropical Malady and being physically moved by it in a way that I hadn't been by a movie before, and not understanding fucking any of it, obviously, but
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but having a really really intense visceral and emotional reaction, um, and this feeling of like a window opening inside me, because I think a lot of people have this experience with Joe's movies where it feels like you're encountering a different way, a different path in the history of movies. It's like, I like to say, it's like it's almost like he's had like the whole history of cinema is different for him. Like he's at the culmination of like an alternate history of movies where it's not 120 years old, it's 2000 years old, and
Yeah.
it starts with cave painting, not with the circus. You know, and I think I really felt when I watched that movie, and then when I watched the rest of his movies, and still when I watch his movies, that it fills me with this incredible sense of freedom and possibility,
Totally.
that you can do anything. And he does not, it starts with like, I can do that, I can copy that, like I want to create that effect, but then it branches out into a much more expansive sense of freedom, I think. And you realize that what he's doing is being completely loyal to his own sense of curiosity, and this is just the cinema that has come out of that, and that's really moving.
It is absolutely. I agree with you
Hmm.
on everything, especially in that tingly thing and the possibility that it changes you in a way, in so many
Mm.
ways, in ways I think you cannot fully express, but also in that wonderful way where you go, oh my God, I had no idea this could be done.
Yeah,
Like I have this freedom, like there's this freedom in the world. And also the way he's so genuinely himself. And it's
yeah,
weird because of course, to me, like, you know him, but I haven't met him. And it's so weird the feeling you get with his movies, that you're like, how, why do I feel like I know him? Why do I
mm.
feel like this person is being so generous and is giving all of him? And it's just
Mm.
like a piece of himself. I know that sounds very corny, but ultimately I think it's true. And that also connects with the documentary, which I think it's beautiful, beautiful
Thank you.
documentary. I mean, congratulations. I loved every minute of it. And I loved every minute of it, especially because I think you were so honest too. Let's just begin by those of you that haven't seen the documentary. This documentary, it's to me, it's almost like a conversation and a collaboration
Mm.
where you meet Api, who I think is your friend, in a country that is unknown for you both.
Yeah.
And that in itself is magic to me already.
Mm.
And most of the movie takes place in a jungle in the middle of Colombia. So how was that?
I mean, it was a very special experience for me. It was sort of a whirlwind because the movie came about very quickly and very in a hurry, and we didn't have that much time to shoot. We were together for a week and a half, and mostly on the beach in Choco, and then a little bit in Medellin, and I had like you said, I'd never been to Colombia, and I was coming in. He had been on a 2 or 3 month long research trip in the country, and he'd been traveling all over. He'd been talking with people, and had been doing the first steps of research into Memoria, and this was in 2017. And I arrived at the very tail of that. So he had, by the time I got there, collected this whole catalog of memories and stories and ideas, and the movie was really starting to shape in his head. And I think you can see that in the movie, that there's, I mean, you'll see when you watch Memoria, it's like there are conversations that we have, stories that he tells me about this person that he met on the strip that are in Memoria word for word. And you see the beginning of that language, which is something really, I think, interesting about Joe that you can see in all his movies, which is he has this great, like, almost laboratory process of,
Yeah.
he becomes obsessed with certain images, certain lines of dialogue, certain characters, and then they recycle through all of the short works that he does, all the museum works, all the artworks, and they keep changing, and sometimes they're really messy, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, and then they refine and refine and refine over the course of 4 or 5 years. And then every 4 or 5 years, he makes this feature where all these ideas that he's gathered come together in a really profound and polished and deliberate way. And it was really exciting for me to go and be there at the very beginning of that, and then now talking to you at the end of that. And Joe was in a really reflective, because of that, I think he was in a very reflective mood, more than normal, and he's normally quite reflective. And I was scared. I mean, I was horrified. You know, I was like 20.
You were?
Of course. I mean, he's a hero of mine. And I was 22. And
Wow.
I had never
How
made.
do you do it? Like,
I,
what do you drink? I need to drink that, man.
I don't think I could do it now. I think, honestly, I think I did it with a lot of ignorance, was how I got through it. I think I had never made a documentary before. I had no idea what I was doing. We basically just hung out and talked, and Joe was quite camera shy. So he very quickly decided that he was also going to film me while we were doing it. And I think it was a way for him, of keeping himself entertained, but also of deflecting the attention of the camera and the attention of what we were trying to do. And I am not, so much has been written and said about Joe, and he's been interviewed a lot, and books have been written about him. And I'm not going to, especially when I'm 22, I'm not adding to the critical conversation. There's not a lot that I can contribute to that. So I felt right from the beginning that if this movie was going to be worth anything, it had to just be a sense,
a portrait.
Yeah, a sense of who he is as a person working, and not necessarily we don't really even talk about the movies, like.
No, you don't. And I absolutely love that. I absolutely love that because, when there's like these very big figures in art or in movie or anything like Api, there's so much you can read about them, right? That try to explain and dissect his work. And I love the idea that you never get to see this. Like, it's amazing because you get to see his process.
Yeah.
And I think your documentary is very important for everyone who's gonna go see Memoria, because I almost see it as a prelude. It's beautiful the way he doesn't speak
Yeah.
about his movie or his movie making process, but then you clearly get a very beautiful portrait of how the mind of this
Yeah.
genius works in such, but it's very beautiful because you do it in a very subtle way. You're not like, okay, let's sit here and I want to
Yeah.
see inside your brain, right?
I
It's
remember
just,
I had all this. I had like a book of like questions and notes and like things like rookie mistakes, like uh, watching every interview he'd ever done, like making questions based on things he had said before, and we we did a couple more traditional like talking heads, sitting across a table and chatting interviews that aren't in the movie, because they were awful, and it was just they were awkward, and you could tell that he was like bored, and that he was it's you know this feeling of like, and I mean I know it too as an actor, which is you get asked the same questions over and over again, and you
yeah.
find you're either repeating yourself and then you're distant from what you're saying, or you're reacting against the thing that you said before. But either way,
Yeah.
it's really hard to make it fresh.
It's not visceral.
Yeah.
And it's almost, I love it. In the words of Bartes, it's like when you repeat something so much
Yes.
that you devoid meaning of it.
Yeah. It like
And that's
empties.
what interviews, yeah, it's absolutely empty. And
Yeah.
I love what you did because this is the opposite.
And
Like it's so
well,
full of meaning.
he even says in the movie, he says, you know, because he's not an easy interview subject, and I'm not an expert interviewer, because he's quiet and he answers questions quickly, you know. And I remember asking him at one point, like almost in frustration, and it's in the movie, like what do you wish people would ask you? And he just said, like, I just wish they'd come up and say, like, how was your day? And then I could say, good, how was yours? Which is half him being playful and kind of
Silly.
mocking me a little bit, but it's also half true, I think. And I realized that was actually more or less the best way to approach him, for him and for me, to just make it like a conversation between two friends that's not particularly profound or expansive, or it doesn't really have any high goal, but it's just talking. And that's when things became more interesting.
Yeah, I love that. It's exactly what you say. It's a collaboration, a conversation. There are very beautiful moments. I love it when he's taking this picture of you where only your face is lightened. It reminded me so much of my favorite photograph in the world. It's a photograph called The Illuminated Man by Dwayne Michaels. Have you ever seen
I
it?
don't think so. Or if I have, I don't know the name.
I'm gonna send it to you. You're gonna love it. It's so beautiful, and just the shots in the canoes, and I wanted also to have this conversation with you because, of course, as a Colombian, this all takes place in Colombia, and it has a huge importance for us Colombians, to have all these cultural things and such a big director uh, working in here. It's Api's first movie outside of Thailand, and it's a huge deal. And it's called Memoria. So Memoria is a very important thing for Colombians
Yeah.
because of all our struggles and because of our history, and anyway, because of many other things. But I wanted to ask you, of course, I need to ask you, what role did Colombia play in all of this?
I mean, it's an interesting question, or a hard question for me to answer, because Joe says that he was trying to, in his trips there and in his time there when he was doing research and then when he was making the film, he was never trying to pretend to be Colombian. He was never trying to tell the story from a Colombian perspective. The fact that Tilda, who's obviously not Colombian, is the lead, but also his point of view is his. It's the same point of view he has when he makes films in Thailand, and he doesn't claim a deep or illuminated understanding of Colombian history or politics or culture. He was trying to accept this idea that he was the alien, and I think he is the alien in most settings that he's in his life. I think he does quite well as the alien, and again, I feel bad because I'm speaking for him in a way, and he can say all this much better than I can. But he was very fascinated by a lot of the parallels historically and geographically between Colombia and Thailand. And if you watch his Thai movies, you know that a lot of what they deal with is the legacy of state violence, the role of collective memory, Bunmi, for example, and the whole project, the primitive project that was, the artworks that were associated with that movie, are set in a part of Thailand where there was a huge, like a dramatic amount of anti-communist killings and violence in the past, and a lot of the people there are much younger. The demographic is younger because of that, in a very dark way, and there's almost like a mass amnesia that these young people who live in the direct shadow and legacy of this violence forget about it or have forgotten about it in ways. And Joe was really interested in that for Bunmi, and that sort of theme has always interested him. And I think South America or Latin America in general, but Colombia specifically, he felt a resonance. Obviously, it's not exactly the same, but he felt some identification with that. And in a more superficial way, even just the landscape. I mean, in our documentary, for example, we're in the jungle of Colombia, but it could easily be the jungle of Chiang Mai, or it's like there's a climate, there's a flora, there's something, there's an atmosphere that's the same, and so I think he was drawn to all of that, and also for him, because we talked a lot about, and it's in the movie a little bit of it, and a lot of it's not, about how he felt embarking on his first film outside of Thailand and whether he was nervous about that. And he talked about how he felt like he kept feeling like he was doing something so different, and he was going somewhere new, and he was meeting all these new people, and it was going to be something completely novel for him. And then as he goes and meets people and talks to people and starts to write and shoots the movie, it ends up just being him.
Yeah.
And it almost doesn't matter, where it is. It's him interacting with the world as he sees it. And I found that perspective really honest. I mean, you talk about him being almost relentlessly honest, and that comes across very powerfully in the movies. But I think because of that, he accepted the role of the alien and the voyeur to a certain degree, and was not trying to make a movie. He was not trying to be prescriptive to the Colombians that he met and to the culture that he was a guest in. And I thought that was very admirable way to go about working.
And how did you feel to be the voyeur of the voyeur?
Well, that's what I was at. This long diatribe actually started there, which is like he feels separate, and I'm coming in with an extra layer of separation because I'm making. I could have made the documentary in Thailand. The timing of it just happened to work out that that's where he was in the time that we needed to make the movie. So in a way, for me, going to Colombia and making the movie there and having it be set there was a coincidence of context. And because most of the time that I was there, we were on a isolated beach. I mean, there was nothing that felt particularly Colombian about that to me. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a beach, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there was three of us there. So in a way, I felt very removed, and feel completely not capable of talking about uh, any relationship that I have with the country, or any relationship that the documentary does. Um, but I think what I'm grateful for in the context of my movie is that I found him in a place that he was not settled. I found him. I think it would have been a very different movie if I had gone to his home in Chiang Mai. I think
Yes.
because it was somewhere where he was still in the process of grappling with the trip he had just had, and he was still, because he was still there, he was not quite yet in like debrief mode. He wasn't.
Yeah.
He hadn't unwinded. He hadn't. He was still there. Um, and I think that created a tension in him that worked for what we were trying to do. Um, and I mean, in a more superficial way, I had a great time.
I'm glad you did. I have a bunch of superficial questions
Please.
for the end of this live, but not right now. Right now, I just wanna, like, in a moment of the documentary that
Mm.
relates to what you were just saying. I love it when Joe says, you ask him why Colombia,
Hmm.
why no more movies in Thailand. Of course, he had like a very deep sentiment of betrayal
Yeah.
with the Thai government. And I'm not going to give any more spoilers, because people, you need to go watch Connor's documentary. Please do yourselves that favor. But he says something that it's sounds so simple and
Mm.
yet is so powerful. And he says, especially for a guy who has amounted so much
Mm.
success and has been able to do so much from the same place,
Hmm.
from Thailand. And he says, I needed to leave because if I stayed, then everything would be easy.
Mm.
And that sounds simple, that sounds like we hear a lot, like, like, get out of the comfort zone. It's like in
Yeah.
every Chinese cookie nowadays, but it's so true. And
Yeah.
I love it. And I think it's no coincidence. It's wonderful the way that he ends up in Colombia and how it goes, because Thailand and Colombia, it's like they're in geographically opposite
Yeah.
sides, like literally. And it's so beautiful. And that's also
Yeah.
the importance I find in your documentary and in his work, and especially in Memoria, is the fact that Api, who is this guy from Thailand, has these recurring themes that are memory, the
Yeah.
boundaries between what's real and what's not real,
Hmm.
dislocation, ghosts.
Mm.
That is something I want to talk to you about later on. But all these things are amazing because they are so Colombian to me.
Yeah.
These themes are so recurring to the Colombian experience, and not only the Colombian experience, but also, and the history of the country, but also the literature. I'm a writer, and I know you're this big cinema guy and you've watched a million movies. I wish I have the time to watch all those movies. Because I've spent most of my life trying to read all
Mm.
as many books as I can read.
That's better.
And you think? No,
I think so.
I
I think
enjoy
Joe would
watching.
agree with me because he barely watches any movies anymore.
Really? I had no idea.
Yeah, I think he said he watches maybe two or three movies a year.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's amazing. Well,
he
I envy you. You know a lot about movies, and I was like, man, I wish I had more time. Like, I wish I was watching Happy when I was 15. When I was 15, I was reading The Babysitter's Club.
it,
So sad.
more fun than Tropical Melody.
No, it's different. But anyway, Happy's movie remind me so hard
Mm.
of books, or stories or literature by Borges. Have you ever read
Yes.
Borges? Or Garcia Marquez? There's so much of Garcia Marquez in Happy's world, and I have no idea if he has ever read him. So it's beautiful the way, like, these, like, we're all the same in a way.
Yeah,
It's very moving, right?
extremely. And I think part of what drew him there was this feeling of being, which is sort of a dislocating feeling, of being both a complete stranger somewhere and also at the same time oddly at place or at home. That those two feelings can exist in the same person at the same time. And I think obviously that sensation or that contradiction of something that's there and not there, something that's true and not true at the same time, has been such a part of all of his movies. And I think he is most comfortable in that place. And again, this is just me speculating based on what I know about him as a person in his movies. But I think also what you said about it being getting away from what's easy, I think that there, and again, this is purely me projecting onto him, so take it with a grain of salt. But I do think that there is a point where, he's made a handful of movies, a lot of movies in Thailand, and many, many more short works. And all of the feature films are masterpieces, all of them. And he is, he was around the age of, he was in his late 40s when he was in Colombia. He turned 50 this year. He's won every award. He's comfortable. He's set up in his, I do think that there probably was some sort of feeling that he could just keep doing it forever, and the movies would always be good, because they probably always would have been good. And I get the sense that something in him told him, there was something, an alarm bell went off, and that he felt like that wasn't the right way forward. And that risking failure, because when you go to a new country and you're, making a movie in a language that you don't, most of Memoria is in Spanish, and he doesn't speak a word of Spanish. And with professional actors, which he's never really worked with before. And he's doing all these things for the first time. And I think it's in a way testing the limits of his, it's testing the elasticity of his vision. Because totally. if he can apply his curiosity and his rigor and his approach in a foreign country, in a foreign language, with Tilda Swinton, and it still works, that's like an expansion,
Yeah, totally. And have you ever felt that way creatively? For example, something that I found very, very interesting and that I like a lot is that, of course, I saw Lyra's Forest, and something that what I like the most about Lyra's Forest was the importance of sound in the short. It's almost as if sound is sort of like the main character. To me, it's, tell me if I'm wrong, but it's like sound and the night are the main characters there. And of course there's a parallel. To me, it was impossible not to make, because of course I was researching for this interview, but there's a parallel that's very strong with Api's work, and especially with Memoria.
Too strong, I think.
No, I don't feel it too strong. I felt it was a beautiful parallel. Your stuff is your stuff, but the sound, the thing about the sound, and how Memoria, for those of you who don't know, is actually a movie that's based on sound. Like there's the hallucination of sound, and also of course it's a movie about memory and how, well, you guys need to go see it, but it's about, just to give a quick synopsis, because you really can't spoil Joe's movies anyway. It's about this woman who hears this banging sound in her head, which is a real condition that some people have. And it's very intense and very disruptive and almost horrific. And she goes on somewhat of a journey to figure out, to try and replicate the sound, and so she can pinpoint it, and then to find out what it is, where it's coming from, and what it means. That makes it sound more literal than it ends up being, of course.
But that's the starting point. And it came, I mean, Joe had this experience of this, like, this,
Bang, he heard.
yeah, unexplained internal banging. And then he became very interested in the connection between that and the legacy of violence in Colombia, and this idea that, you know, still sometimes when fireworks go off or when people hear loud bangings, people who lived through bombings, it triggers PTSD, and that is exactly the sort of thing that Joe, that relationship between memory and violence and
trauma
and sensory perception is so much at the core of what Joe's always been interested in. And sound, for anyone who knows his other movies, is one of the most compelling things about what he is able to do formally. Is he is a genius with sound. I mean, it's like it is the richest sound work in modern movies, and it's almost impossible. I mean, it is impossible to describe because it's sound. But so much of the effect of something like Tropical Malady, when I say it had like its tingles up my spine, is because of sound, because of the perfect fusion of intensely rich, intensely deep sound and very minimal, very precise image. And of course, Joe would be the one who starts to get a phantom explosion in his head because
yes, of course,
it's like
that will happen to him. Like,
so yes, but he's very good at this sort of thing where he takes something like a neurological condition, and his immediate impulse is to connect it to the land and the history of the land. And a lot of this movie in particular is about not just the collective memory of the people of Colombia, but also about this idea that the land itself has some memory, which is fascinating.
It is very fascinating, and it is very, for as a Colombian, it appeals to me very deeply, and it moves me very much because what you were saying, like, I do not have PTSD when I hear bombs, thank God, and frankly, I have no idea why.
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason is that we Colombians have normalized violence to a point where it's crazy, actually. And I think, for example, I grew up in Cali, and Cali, it's a city that was a huge stage for narco wars and stuff like that. And till this moment, it's all I wasn't aware this was an issue until I heard about Memoria, until I was doing this research for this interview. And it's like, I always make the joke that one of my secret talents is knowing exactly if what we're hearing, if a loud sound is fireworks or bullets. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's like my secret talent. And it's like, oh no, like there's a darkness. That's really messed up. Yeah, there's a lot of darkness in there, but I also feel there's a lot of power, especially in this movie, in what sound is able to convey. And sound connected to memory. And I wanted to ask you if maybe there's a specific sound memory that you hold close to your heart.
That's a good question. There is actually. I mean, I'm more of a visual person generally than I am a sonic person. But I remember when I was 17 or 18, 17 maybe, I went to Japan for the first time, and I was by myself, and I had missed a train. And I was supposed to be going to this hostel, and I couldn't get on the train, so I had to get a bus, and then I ended up having to get a taxi. It was a long story, but it ended with me walking in the dark through this tiny town, and it was completely silent, and it was like midnight. It was way later than I was supposed to be, and I had my suitcase, and I was pulling it behind me on this gravel road, and the only sound it seemed like the only sound in the entire world was
What's that?
my footsteps and the rolling of the suitcase. And I remember it was the first time that I can remember that the impact of a sound in the moment that it was happening froze me. Um, and I like stopped walking and I stood there in silence because it was
You're gonna make me cry.
somehow overwhelming. I mean, it's a totally ordinary sound. You know what I mean? Like there was nothing like,
No, no, no. But the way you're saying it, it's so powerful. You need to do something with this, please. I
but
almost cried. I was.
I think that was the first real encounter that I had with the power of sound. I mean, like, honestly, sound is really interesting. I don't know if you've ever been in like a sound mix for a movie.
No, I haven't.
But I really, as someone who is not sonically inclined, it's been really in starting to make movies. It's been really interesting for me to learn a little bit about sound and the effect that sound can have, which is so much greater than I think most people realize when they're watching movies. And to be in the mix and to take a wind sound effect, for example, and to raise it 2 decibels or add a little bit of reverb or move it 12 frames to the right, and to see how radical the difference is on the effect of the scene or the moment. And you realize you're like, oh wait, fuck, like if it has this much effect in such a with such minute change, how much effect does it have on me in my daily life without realizing it? Yeah.
Yeah. I need to go to a sound mixing now. Now I'm gonna have to call my friends who are
You
filmmakers
should.
and
I mean,
yeah.
it's a scene in Memoria where she's hearing this bang in her
Yes.
head, and the first thing she does is she goes to like a sound engineer
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in a mixing stage, and he, using the tools of movie sound mixing, recreates that specific bang for her by adding a little more bass here and a little more treble there, and combining the sound of like a meat punch with he's like a film sound designer. Uh, and he manages to find through movies the sound that's exploding in her head. And there's, I guess I'll just say, I remember it's not in the movie anymore, so it's not a spoiler, but the first draft of the script that I read, maybe not even the first draft, maybe like a treatment. Um, he originally wanted the movie to end and have the last 15 or 20 minutes be in actual silence. Like the
Yeah.
sound turns off. He didn't do that in the
That's
end.
so a Joe thing to do.
Yeah, he didn't do that in the end. But I think that it gives you some sense of where how he was thinking, and about how important sound was in this movie. I was going to say quickly, there was a really interesting thing that happened because I went and also visited the shoot for a week.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the first day we were there, or the first day I was there, the scene that they shot, and I don't know if it's in the movie or not, so it could be cut, was an explosion. This like a corner, this shop on the street in this town called Pihao exploded, and dust and debris flew everywhere, and smoke, and but the shot was this massive explosion, and then all the people who live in the town, kids, old people, someone walking their dog, walk through the smoke without noticing it, as
Wow.
it as if the explosion had never happened. And so this was the very first image that I saw on set, and it was this unbelievably haunting, um, uh, like evocation of forgetfulness, and I thought of it because you were talking about this like normalization. Um,
So it's so violent, right?
yeah.
It's crazy because the word to me is violent and the normalization. Like
Mm.
as you described this scene, of course, it would be impossible for people just to walk through by it as
Of
if
course.
nothing has happened. But at the same time, I feel like it could totally happen in Colombia.
Mm.
And it's so devastating. And when you were talking, of course, about the idea when Api explores this like generalized amnesia
Mm.
um, in Thailand, I feel like it's something we as Colombian have lived through as well.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not amnesia, but it's maybe we are very brainwashed and it's very crazy. And I think this movie is very important
But this
for
is what you,
Colombia.
again, this is one thing that I noticed in Colombia, and this was from a very surface level encounter with the country. But Joe talked about it also, which was talking to people, and he interviewed and talked with a lot of people when he was traveling, that generally when he would ask people about, especially in the countryside, about history of violence, that or about impressions of the country that they wanted to give to people who weren't from it, that the focus immediately became on the future, and that
Yeah.
we don't. It's not about the past. Joe has a couple stories of people telling him, like grabbing his arm and being like, "Don't make a movie about the past. Like make a movie about the future of Colombia. Like
Yeah.
there's so much future. The future is bright. The future is where the country is." And that I think he found that. Well, he said that when he comes to the U.S. or Canada or Europe, it almost, especially Europe, it's almost, there's this obsession with looking backwards. It's like almost like visiting a museum.
Yes.
But he said in Colombia and in Thailand too, there's the opposite obsession. There's an obsession with looking ahead. And I don't know how true that is to your experience as a Colombian.
It is true.
But he felt a real affinity for that. That how complicated that is. That on one hand, it creates this great energy and passion and positivity and optimism in a way, but also it kind of requires the past to become blurry and confused and I mean, in Thailand, for example, the violence, and I know it's even more recent in Colombia, is within his generation. You know, it's like it's not 100 years ago. It's very recent and extreme. And the ability of young people, of teenagers, people my age in Thailand, to move past it is almost uncomfortable.
It is. And it's crazy. It's also like we have a very big, as Colombian, we have a very big obsession with the future, with what the future holds. Also with, we are almost, it's very crazy because we always rank as one of the happiest countries in the world. That is the craziest thing to me. And it's because I feel we are all in this like state of constant denial. And it's absolutely true that we have a very understandable rejection of the past because it is very, very painful. So we don't want to look back. But there's also like a dark effort by the government to not be clear with what really happened. It's just like, it was ugly. It was a blurred, like, just go ahead, look ahead, and don't look back. Because if we, in fact, were to look back, there's a lot of hard truth that we would find in there. And as a Colombian, I think it's very hard because we don't have a big sense of our past. Then our identities are very are hard to form. And I think we are definitely defined by trauma. We think we are not. We think we're a happy country. We're so happy.
Yeah.
We're so nice to people. We are like, and I'm like, guys, this is trauma.
But this is
like
another,
this because we're traumatized. Like we need to acknowledge this. It's so crazy because it's a whole country.
It's another weird parallel between Colombia and Thailand.
Yeah.
Because Joe talks about it in the film that you know, he finds himself as a Thai person almost brainwashed, to use his words, that he smiles. And that
yes,
and that
I love.
And he's like, even if as a Thai person, it's like you see a car crash in front of you, and you're supposed to like laugh.
Yes.
And it's this almost like a maniac level of happiness.
Yes.
And I think he also, as someone who resents that and is bitter toward that, and is not actually that happy in a lot of ways, but also very much is still possesses that and has that in him. I think that was another thing and another weird connection between the two countries, the two cultures that he found compelling.
Yes, that's why I'm compelled to finish this live with funny stuff. Because it's like I'm Colombia. I need to make some jokes in here. Like that's what I'm supposed to do, you know? It's like it's
Yeah.
so ingrained. And at the same time, it's like, yeah, I'm not, I don't feel like being funny all the time or like Sofia Vergara like. But
Well, that's what
anyway,
Joe said. He said in the movie, he says like, I don't want to smile. Like I want to stop. Like, you know, I want to, I don't want to have to. Like it's like I'm a robot. Like I feel like an automaton. My body is just like forcing me to have a reaction to something that is not right.
yeah, it's so crazy, you know. I wanted to ask you three final
Mm.
questions regarding the documentary before we go to the funny part because I'm not gonna leave the funny part
Okay.
ahead. So my first question that was really it caught my attention a lot is there's a very intimate part where Joe is filming you and you are laying on bed and it like we have no idea what the conversation is going about,
Mm-hmm.
but you said something that I felt I related to and at the same time I felt very intrigued again.
Mm-hmm.
And you said you're talking about a book and it's called Super Genius or
Mm-hmm.
something about super genius and you said because I felt I was a super genius and I felt like I wanted to be like a
Mm-hmm.
super genius. What book was that and what?
Yeah, he was asking me. He was filming me, and he was asking me questions about. He was just getting me to talk, and I think he asked me about books that I had loved when I was a kid. Um, and I talked about this book called Artemis Fowl, which is
Okay.
a very famous kids fantasy adventure book. Um, and and I think the reason why I was drawn and like I'm very ununique in this. I think most people who read those books feel the same thing. And to to Harry Potter and so, is this idea that you have a profound um, conflicting sense that on one hand you are already special and different than the people around you and deserve fantastic things, capital F, um, but also a dawning and terrifying realization that you're not, um, and uh, it turns into this like desire, uh,
Yeah.
this longing, which is what makes those stories appealing, because you're reaching for something like all desire that you can't have, that does not, doesn't exist, and yeah. So I think that I felt like, and I mean, it's in a way, it's the same thing as having like a relationship with, um, or it's like, when I started to be a filmmaker, when I was like 17, 18, I started to make movies, and you have this like, I've never been more confident as a filmmaker than when I made my very first short film, which was garbage, but I felt going into it, I felt completely secure and sure that my inherent talent was going to shine through. Just wait and see. And you realize that that's not the case. And I think that it happens with a lot of people, that the gap or the chasm between that opens up as you become an adult between what you long for, from these stories and from these images, and what is actually available to you can really crush you and can turn a lot of people away from even trying.
From doing things,
Yeah.
right? I love what you're saying because I feel so, you know, identified. Like that's exactly what my work is all about,
Mm.
I think. Like for me it's like I'm a writer and I the moment what you say you felt with this book, I felt it when I read Susan Sontag's diaries.
I'm
If
sure. Yeah.
you are
Yeah.
yeah,
You get
if
Susan
you
Sontag. I get Artemis Fowl. It's like a slightly different
no, but I
class.
mean, you were watching Appy. I was reading The Babysitters Club. So, I mean, you win in this fight. You win. But anyway, when I read Susan Sontag's diaries, I was man, like I'm like I'm never gonna
Mm.
be this good. or reading Garcia Marquez.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, like I'm done. Like I don't know what I can do next.
Mm.
And then my books, which I really I want to write nonfiction and memoir and maybe a little bit of fiction. And I was given the opportunity, hey, do you need to publish a book and do you want to publish it now? And me being scared and doing, oh my God, like what can I do? And I ended up doing this. They're very simple books actually, and what those books actually mean to me and why I what I do with them is I tell people this is a safe space for you to do something while you're working on the gap, because you have like you might take the where you understand the gap, work into the gap. Have you ever heard Ira Glass, The Gap?
Yeah.
Have you seen the video?
Yeah. No, I haven't seen the video.
Oh, you need to see the video. It's so beautiful. You need to see it. But yes, you can do nothing and then don't expose yourself and don't risk failure, or you can, do something. And I think that's exactly what I try to do. So this is a beautiful conversation. It hit a soft spot in me. Sorry.
I'm glad.
And then the other two questions are questions that you asked Joe in the movie, and you ask, do you believe in fate? And I wanted to ask you, Connor, do you believe in fate?
No, not really. I mean, it depends what you mean, I guess. Which maybe I'm saying sort of the same answer that Joe gave, without meaning to. Which is, if by fate you mean things happen as they will happen, and that there's a certain amount of that is, or the majority of that's outside of our control, then obviously that's true. But do I believe in it in the sense of the sort of cheap what's meant to happen will happen platitude? I struggle to believe in that. Life seems too big and complicated and tricky for that to be true.
Yeah, I agree. And do you believe in karma?
No, I don't. I mean, I feel bad because it's been a while since I've seen the movie, and I realized that my answers basically line up with what Joe said. He just said it better. But I think, do I believe in karma in the sense that, in general, if you work with an open mind and are kind to people and are kind to yourself, that the results will usually be better? Yeah. But do I believe in it as like in the Buddhist sense, which is a much bigger concept than is, no. And do I believe in it in like a supernatural sort of like Western fake Buddhist sense? No.
Oh, no. No. Okay, I love it. Okay, so are you ready for the fun part?
Oh God, this is fun. The fun part is always the scariest part.
You can say no.
No, I'm very ready for the fun part.
Okay, so I watched it. This is not I wish this was an original idea of mine, but it is not. I watched this on a TikTok at like 3 a.m. in the morning. But as a Colombian, I need to do this. And so here's what I came with. I'm gonna read to you and I'm gonna show you some words in Spanish. And what I want you to do, worry not, this is gonna be fun.
Okay.
Because you need to come back to Colombia.
I
need to show you my trauma skills of how everything can be very funny and how you're gonna have the best time in your life. Love that. But yeah, so I'm gonna give you some Spanish words and I'm gonna read them to you, and then I want you to take a guess on what they mean. Is it okay?
Okay, great. I can't wait to offend people. Let's do it.
No. It's not gonna be offended, I promise. I work really hard and this is gonna go great. Okay, so
okay.
The first word is costilla.
Okay. Um, uh, it's a party that you have to celebrate someone uh, doing something really successful, like it's like a celebration of someone's achievements.
Okay, I love it. You're very creative, but no. Costilla means rib.
Okay, well, I was close.
You were so
I was
close.
basically. I feel like you should just give me that one.
Yeah. I'm like I mean, Costilla is all yours. You can take it. Okay, so are you ready for the next one?
Give it to me.
Okay, so it's chigüiro.
That is a brand of dog food.
This is the best game ever. It is not. It is chigüiro is the Colombian word for capicabra.
Okay.
So yes, we love capicabra. I'm obsessed with capicabras. Like you cannot even imagine the size, the amount, the length, the depth of my obsession with capicabras. But anyway, you are doing great. I'm loving this. Okay, ready for the next word?
Yes, very.
Okay, so it's tia.
Uh, Ant?
Yeah.
I was gonna say I feel like I should know that one.
Yes. I love it. So that was an easy one,
Yeah.
right? Okay, three more. Fregar.
That is when you are locked overnight in a hockey rink and you get really cold.
I love the Canadian in you.
I always have to
Thinking
bring
of
it
the
back.
yeah, of the hockey rink. Okay, no, I love this is one of my favorite words in Spanish. Fregar actually means to scrub, but wait a minute. It's a word that your mother uses when you're like messing around or when you're like being a pain in the ass. So
Yeah.
your mother would say like, Amalia, deja de fregar, like stop scrubbing. That would be like the literal translation. This word, you need to memorize it. It's so beautiful.
I'll. So I wasn't right about the hockey rink. You're saying.
You were not, sadly, you were not. But
I
I'm
want.
gonna give it to you.
Do you think is there an ice hockey rink in Colombia? There
That's a
must be.
great question.
There must be figure skating, right? Like there must be an ice rink.
But not in ice. I think there's no ice.
Really?
This is like no. Like I feel like there's one
Mm.
outside a mall and it's really crappy ice. I went once as a kid and I broke a tooth. So yeah, I don't think there's like a ring like for professional hockey. Like I know there's like hockey without ice,
Mm.
but
It's
it's
sad.
sad. We need to do something about that.
I'm pretending to be sad, but like I don't give a fuck about hockey. Like I don't care about it at all. I'm
Really?
actively dislike hockey. So
I
I'm
actively dislike soccer.
I'm with you
And as
too.
a Colombian, that is a big insult. So you and I,
Yeah. But this goes back to,
yeah.
I mean, this is in Joe's in my documentary too, where Joe talks about how the most boring thing you can do is talk to someone about soccer,
Yeah.
and that
And
that that,
how
that grounds you as a human being.
yeah, so whenever I feel like grounding, I'm gonna either talk about hockey. Do you think hockey works too?
I'm sure if you're in Canada, it absolutely does.
So thank you for giving me this tool of
Yes.
knowing how to do
Yes,
grounding where I'm in
I was a
Canada.
little gay boy growing up in Canada, and every boy plays hockey in Canada, and it was like if you can't talk about hockey, if you don't know what the Maple Leafs are doing, you basically are out of the conversation.
Oh my God, that's awful. And it's very funny because it's actually the country for me. I grew up a little lesbian, so people were expecting me to be really good at soccer.
Right.
I was like, no, why are you pushing me towards this? Like, leave me alone. I don't like it.
They just need to they need to stay away from the gays. They just let us not play the sport.
Yes, like keep us out of the sports. That would be amazing. So, are you ready for the next word?
Yes.
Perreo.
That is when you go for a really quick jog,
No,
like a
but you were
5 minute,
so
5 minutes or
close.
less.
Yeah, you were so close.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Because perreo, it's actually like Latin twerking.
Oh, okay.
So, I
So
can
that
see
was
the
actually like in
connection.
the same umbrella.
Yeah, yeah. And
Okay.
but also perreo it's much more than that because it's like Latin twerking,
Hmm.
but also it's like an attitude. It's a philosophy almost.
Right.
So it's the whole concept, but you were so close.
Hmm. I'm
And
glad.
then the
I'll
last
take it.
one, yeah. This one is yours. I'm absolutely gonna give you perreo. You won
Okay.
this
That's generous, but thank you.
one. And then the last one is arrebol.
Um, that's when you are uh, so happy, you feel like you're floating off the ground, like an angel.
Oh my God. No, but almost. Almost.
Really?
Yeah. Arrebol. This is actually one of my favorite words in Spanish. Arrebol, and I think there's no translation for
Mm.
this word, is when the sky turns like red. Yeah, it's when the sky turns like red.
Oh, there's a
When you
specific
would,
word for that? That's wonderful.
yeah, there's a specific word to that, and it's like feeling like an angel. So you got
Wow.
it, basically. Like
Well, I mean, it was like
you're good at
associated.
this.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah. Well,
you won.
I can go
You
to
won,
bed
babe.
tonight feeling
Like a winner.
absolutely.
So this was amazing. Thank you very much
Thank you
for
so
having
much. This
this.
was so nice.
It was. I absolutely love your documentary.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see Memoria for
Same.
those of you who are in Colombia. It opens in theater September 30, so please go
Yeah, I'm
visit.
so fascinated, and I'm sure Joe is also, to hear and see how Colombians feel about the movie. I'm really curious how people feel.
I will try to let you know. Thank you so much for your time. We need to bring you back. We need
Yes,
to take you
please.
to Cartagena. We need to smile a lot like robots. You need to teach me about cinema, please, and keep doing what you do. I'm in awe with all your talent, man. You're so talented.
Thank
I'm
you.
so happy you
Very kind of
exist.
you. Me
No,
too.
it's
I'm happy I exist also. I mean, most days, most days.
I'm glad you're happy. And we'll see you around.
Yeah, I hope so. See you around. Thank
Okay.
you.
Have a great time. Thank
Yeah, have a
you.
great night.
Bye.
Bye.